Hello, guys, and welcome to another session of Live Well. Today, I'm very excited. I have the one and only Carlton. He's the owner of, uh, creator of Carlton Speaks. He's joining us from Pittsburgh. Welcome, Carlton.
Hey, how's it going, Dondre?
I'm so excited to have you here today to talk to us about mental health. So just to start off, what does mental health, what does it mean to you?
I feel mental health is extremely important. I feel like we have to ultimately, and it kind of maybe goes into, something that we'll talk about a little bit later, but it's extremely important that you maintain the right level of mental health. Because again, I feel like if you are not intentional about mental health, I feel like you'll accidentally not necessarily ignore, but I would even use the word, you would accidentally neglect your spiritual health. And I feel like both are extremely vital to what God has called you to do. It's difficult to pour from an empty cup, and it's difficult to do what God has called you to do if you're not in the right mental space. And then ultimately, like I said, if you're not in the right mental space, there's a good chance that you may not be in the right spiritual space either. So I feel like those two go hand in hand. So I feel like mental health is very important.
So how do you maintain your mental health?
I feel like when I look at maintaining my mental health, I feel like number one, it's going to spend time with God. I feel like, getting an escape sometimes from things. Again, the one thing that I want to really emphasize, Dondra, is we have to be intentional about our mental health, or even intentional about the maintenance of our mental health. Because again, maintaining our mental health does not happen by accident. It's not something that you just accidentally, hey, my mental health is going to get better as long as I just take naps or sleep. The devil is a liar. So you have to be intentional. You have to have a plan. Like, what can I do to reshape and reframe my mental health? So I know some things that I do. Again, it goes back to doing things that I feel are going to pour back into me mentally. So one of those things is the word of God, reading the word of God, watching sermons. I do feel like sometimes having an escape, as being an entrepreneur and, the founder of my brand, I feel it's important to kind of escape, from, answering, prayer requests and direct messages, and always thinking about content and all those different things, because again, those are things also too that contributes to my mental health. But sometimes we need to rest as well. So again, it's just trying to find that balance, but I have to be intentional. Like, the biggest thing is being intentional to know, okay, what time am I going to devote towards, coming up with content and writing and doing things that I want to do that are going to pour into me? What time am I going to read? What time am I just going to actually just take some time to just, rest, whether it's taking a nap, whether it's watching one of my favorite shows. So again, we have to be intentional. And even in the word of God, it mentions that Jesus often withdrew to go pray. So we're talking about Jesus here. We're not just talking about an average person. We're talking about Jesus, who was performing miracles and wonders and doing so many great things. And that's what he was called by God to do. But he ultimately knew that in order for him to maintain the calling that was placed on his life and to perform the miracles that we see in the Bible, he had to make sure he had to make time and be intentional about withdrawing to go spend time with God. So again, we're human, so we're not immune to that. You know what I mean? So again, we have to make sure that we're intentional about, getting escape from the job. Sometimes if you have kids, from your children, just having a little bit of escape, having some me time. And ultimately, those activities should be things that pour back into you, healthy things that pour back into you, watching, whether it's TV, reading, studying, things that are going to pour back into you, things that you enjoy doing. Because again, mentally, it feels good when you're doing something fun and something that, that you enjoy doing. So I feel like that's one way or a few ways to actually maintain your mental health.
I like what you said, like, because I think that that's like overlooked, that mental health and
Mhm.
spiritual health kind of goes hand in hand. So I like that you mentioned that, because I know just even with me as a business owner, sometimes I get so overwhelmed, and I know that when I take a step back and I'm focusing on my mental health, through being spiritually healthy, I see that I get different results. So what
Right.
advice would you give to someone who is struggling with their mental health?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question because sometimes people do feel like, okay, I'm struggling with my mental health. I feel like you have to create a plan because, again, you have to be intentional. And even improving your mental health, that's not something that you can do by accident. It's not just going to happen. It's not just going to be, as soon as I get more rest, I'm going to be better. We have to be intentional. So, again, I feel like coming up with a plan, like, even thinking about, okay, well, what are some things that I enjoy doing? What are some things that I can do that will pour back into me mentally, right? What are some things that I maybe need to refrain from? So we just have to even create like a detailed plan. And I know sometimes detailed, it seems like, wow, do I have to really be that detailed? My answer is yes. You have to be extremely intentional about your mental health to the point to where you have a list of things that you like to do. Because, I've talked to people, it's like, what do you like to do? And it's like,
I don't know.
yeah, I don't know, because again, you haven't done those things in such a long time. So again, it's like, okay, what are 5 different things that you enjoy doing? And how can you incorporate those things into your weekly and daily schedule and your daily routine? Because you have to make time. Because sometimes when we try to find time for our mental health, and I
Mm.
often feel that when you try to find something, you might not find it because it's like there are things that I've looked for. Like, man, I can't find that shirt. It's gone. I can't find it. So again, what am I going to do? So again, we have to make time. So we have to look at our 24-hour schedule. Okay, I work for 8 hours. I, get 8 hours of sleep. Okay, I have 8 hours. Okay, what a part of that 8 hours can I use to devote towards my mental health? Doesn't obviously have to be all eight, again, especially if you say, hey, I have children, things along those lines, but at least 1 to 2 of those hours per day should be devoted towards your mental health. You devote a minimum of 2 days or 2 hours a day towards your mental health. That's 7 days a week. That's at least 14 hours devoted to you. Now, granted, weekends and things when you're not working may open up more opportunities, but again, you have to be that detailed. You have to be that intentional. You have to create a plan to not only maintain your mental health, but sometimes even improve it and get it back where it needs to be. Because again, mental health and spiritual health, they're really, I think they're aligned. Because like I said, I don't know too many people who say, hey, I have great spiritual health, but not good mental health. Because again, if you have good spiritual health, you're most likely going to have good mental health. And if you have great mental health, there's a good chance that you're at least in a decent spiritual space. So those two have to go hand in hand. But my encouragement and my advice to someone who may be having some struggles with it would be to create a detailed plan of things that you can do to pour back into yourself, be intentional about what time that you're going to pour into yourself, and ultimately make it a priority.
And so that's when you come in. So you are a life coach, and that's something that
Yes.
you do. You help people create that and create that plan. So let's talk about that. You, as a life coach, and what you do to help
Mhm.
people with their mental health.
Right. And that's a huge part of it. I've worked with a few different clients on self care and, again, mental health. So I definitely have worked with different people, and that's been my approach. Like, hey, what are some things that you enjoy doing? I have my clients come with a list, 5, 10 things that they enjoy doing. Okay. Well, what's their, how can we incorporate these things into your week, and how often can we incorporate those things into your week? Because some things may be luxury items, some things might be, well, I like going to the salon. Obviously, some may not be able to go to the salon every week because of finances and because of your schedule. But again, if it's like, hey, I can do it once a month, twice a month, okay, cool. And be intentional about it. Well, I do like, reading. Okay, well, let's find time in your day to where you can actually devote towards reading or writing, or, I like drawing, or whatever it is that pours back into yourself. I do help my clients come up with a detailed game plan on what pours back into them and how they can actually incorporate it into their schedule. Because again, you got to have a plan. Because again, just saying, hey, I'm going to read the word of God and don't have a time, the likelihood of you reading the word of God, unless you have a perfect day, becomes less likely. Because again, if something happens that throws your day off, next thing you know, you forgot about reading the word of God. And most people can say, hey, how can you forget about reading the word of God? We're busy human beings, and things happen to where if we were not intentional about it, then it's easy to get pushed to the side. It's not saying that God is pushed to the side, but we have to be intentional about making God first. And if we're not intentional about making God a priority, it's easy to accidentally allow him to kind of become a, a secondary or tertiary thing. So again, as a life coach, that's something that I do work with my clients on, is kind of seeing where they are mentally and spiritually and what I can do to get them back on track, and try to align those two things to really try to get them in the right track spiritually. And ultimately, when you feel good in your spirit, most likely you start the transition to you feeling good mentally.
So you've given us some great things that we can do to improve our mental health. So I appreciate you for that. And if someone wanted to reach out to you as a life coach, what can you go ahead and give us that information of how you can be reached?
Awesome, and I want to thank you again, Dondra, for this. This is special. I love this series. Live well. It's something that needs a great emphasis on this. So I appreciate you, answering the call to do this. For someone who is looking to get in contact with me as far as life coaching, my website is carltonspeaks.com. And you can go to my website and you can actually fill out a form that says, hey, I'm interested in coaching or this many coaching sessions. And then what we can do is set up a phone consultation. Also, too, you can, I'm on social media as well. So my Instagram page is _Carlton Speaks. So you can send me a direct message there. My Facebook is my full name, Carlton Falconer Jr. So you can send me a message there. So there are a lot of different avenues that you can go to get in contact with me. I'm not hard to get in contact with. For those who may not follow me on Facebook or Instagram, maybe my website would be the easiest way to go. You can just simply take 2 minutes to fill out a form, your name, how I can contact you, and what coaching package you might have an interest in. And we normally set up like a 30-minute consultation over the phone first, just to kind of see, what I can help you with. Is it mental health? Is it spiritual health? Is it both? And then from there, we determine, what amount of coaching sessions would be ideal, but also recommended to help you get to where you want to be.
Okay, thank you. And so also I'm going to drop that in the comments, so that your information, so that they'll be able to reach you. And also really quickly, I want to plug, he also has apparel, as I'm wearing today. So if you guys want to purchase any of that, you can do that as well. So again, thank you. And I will see you guys next week.